Gives me this. I'm like, whoa. So out of the blue, I take some time off. Was given time off, and her cousin told the people whom I worked for that I wasn't sick and that I was out of town, and made a bunch of like false allegations. And so when I got back to work, there was this tension. So I came home and I told her, I said, hey, your cousin, is up at the job spreading rumors, lies, and, he needs to not do that. She was like, well, he'll be over here in a little while. So when he arrived, I asked him about it, and he went off and was like, don't talk to me, you stupid black bitch. I was 21. I had never been called a black bitch in my life. I grew up in a city in California where people respected each other for our cultural differences. Sacramento was really a true melting pot. I grew up with a Laotian next door neighbor, a Mexican person across the street, a Hebrew family next door. It was just, it was based off of class, what you could afford. It wasn't based off of your ethnicity, based off of what area of town you pretty much lived in. Um, I didn't experience that until I got later in my 20s, and I traveled more and I began to see communities where you had Chinatown or Jamaica Town, or where the communities were broken down into ethnic groups. And so when he called me that, it just it struck a nerve. I had never. So I went and made a phone call to a few people whom I knew here in Jacksonville, some men that could come and protect me. And they came and ran everyone out of the home, and then the police were called. And so the police shows up, and they tell me, say, what are you doing here? I said, what do you mean? Said, what are you doing here? I said, I live here. Yeah, but why? What are you doing here in this home? You're not supposed to be living in this house. Do you know whose home this is? And I just acted like I didn't know. And I was like, no. I mean, I paid my rent to her. He was like, no, that don't got anything to do with it. I need you to pack all your stuff, and I need you to get out of here. You have 1 hour to do that. And so he calls over the young lady. Literally, literally, her name was Becky. Literally. And asked her how much money I pay her for rent, and that she needed to give it back to me, and that she had 30 days to give me my money back. And he looked at me, he said, she has 30 days to give you the money back. Do you understand? I said, yes. And he said, okay, so you have an hour. I said, well, I don't have enough, that's not enough time for me to pack up all my stuff. Like, when am I supposed to come back? He said, don't come back. Whatever you can't take, you just need to leave. I said, okay. Now, I had just came from the city, like into the South. I had never seen any kind of treatment like this by a police officer, except on TV or in movies, or hearing stories from, from some of my elders, about what they experienced growing up with police brutality or police injustice, or, um, you know, racial tension as it pertains to police. And I totally felt it, like, you are not wanted here. You're not supposed to be here. And then he pulled, Becky over to the side, and he was talking to her, and he was like, what the hell are you? He was just really going off on her, and she was crying. And, I heard him mention something about your father and blah, 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 but I didn't hear everything. So I knew it had pertained to what I previously said. So I was like, okay, this is real. So I go in and I, pack everything that I could. I put it in my car. I slept in my car overnight, and ended up running into a guy I knew, and we went to 7-Eleven, ran into him. He's like, oh, you can stay with me, blase squad, but of course it had to be something sexual, and I'm like, no, I'm not down for it. I'll sleep in my car, no thank you. So I slept in my car another night, and then I was sitting there, and I saw this guy walking into the apartment complex, and for some reason, Javon, you will hear this one day. You saved me. Thank you. It was real that night. And he was just an angel. He was walking by, and I was like, excuse me. And I told him this story, and I was like, I just need a couple of days. Like, I have a check coming. Like, just need a couple days. I don't want to call my family or anything. He was like, you would really like just stay with me? Like, where you going to sleep? I'll sleep on your floor. I don't want to sleep in my car another day. And I don't want to go to hotels. I don't want to give people my money. I'll give you the money. When I get paid, I'll give you the money. He was like, are you serious? I was like, yes. He's like, you don't even know me. I was like, I know. I was like, you don't know me either. I was like, but I think you're good. He was like, okay. So I packed my stuff and I stayed with this guy for like 2 weeks. And his girlfriend was not feeling it, of course. And so I paid him when my check came and everything, and we were really good friends for a while after that, and, you know, tried to befriend her, but she never really understood the situation, so she never really allowed me to get very close, but nothing happened between us. We were just friends. I just felt like he would help me in that situation, and I prayed about it, and that's what the Spirit told me to do, and ever since I left California, I've just been following whatever the Spirit tells me to do, and it has worked out, so I stopped questioning things. So, so in that experience with him, you know, it taught me that you cannot sell yourself out. You cannot, like, I could have easily stayed with the guy I knew and been assaulted. But I stayed with someone I didn't know and I was never assaulted. And so you have to follow your spirit. You can't follow what people say or what people you think people who people are. You know, we're led by our intuition, and a lot of times we ignore it, and it gets us in a lot of trouble. And so, you know, we don't always understand our intuition or understand why we're being told to do certain things. Because I surely was not understanding why I was sent to Jacksonville, Florida. It gets deeper. So as we go deeper, I get myself together. I'm working, doing my little jobs, odds and ends, and I go to my aunt's house and I meet this guy from Africa, from Sierra Leone, Pawusu Kamara, bless up. It was right after the Blood Diamond Crisis, right when all that was going on, and his family were refugees and they came here from Sierra Leone. And we dated for several years. It was one of my first fiancés. I still love you. And we had a really awesome relationship. He taught me a lot about Africa, but the main thing was during that time of when I was dating him, I took a tour, a ride through this neighborhood of Jacksonville. I had lived here for a few years, but I hadn't really gotten familiar with the whole city. Jacksonville is one of the biggest cities, land-wise, on the map of the United States. So it's a huge city. So I began to do a little bit of, you know, riding around and sightseeing, and I ended up in this neighborhood, and literally, I went into a trance. As soon as I crossed over on like Florida Avenue side, I just went into trance. I began to feel happy, and I began to see people dancing and smiling and people double dutching, and I just went back like into time. It was like really weird, and I was just driving and smiling and just seeing something that wasn't there, but that was there at one time. And as I continued to drive around for probably about maybe 5 minutes into it, then all of a sudden things got dark and ugly, and I started hearing screaming and crying and yelling and people fighting and then gunshots, and I was just like really afraid, and I started crying. And I pulled over, and immediately when I pulled over, I'm sitting on the side of the road, and I'm like, OMG, what am I experiencing right now? And I look over, and there's this little shop, there's this little store. And I said, okay. And the Spirit said, that's what you're here for, right there. I said, okay. So I look over, and there's this little store. It's like, what am I supposed to do with this little store? It's like, well, go ahead and call and say it's for rent, and you open your store. I said, what store? At this time in California, you know, I had done tons of corporate work, and I was a massage therapist. I worked with herbs and crystals, but it wasn't something I did as a business. And so I was like, what store am I supposed to open here? And the Spirit's like, your store. I was like, okay. So I meditated on it. I got out. I prayed over the building. I looked around and got back in the car. I was like, all right, it's a go. You say, this is what I'm here for. I'm going to do it. So I pulls all my money out of the account to zero, to nilch, to pay all this money for fixing the place and last and deposit and this and that and buying inventory and everything to open Afrique Boutique. So Pawusu's uncle Alusine in Sierra Leone provided all of our textile. He would make all the clothes and send them over for the boutique, and that is how it all began. So I'm sitting in the Afrique Boutique, and Famita Vell, Mama Famita, walks into Afrique Boutique, and she says, "You're back." Mm. And I said, what do you mean I'm back? She says, you come back. Mm. They always said you would come back. Mm. And I said, what are you talking about? I've never been here before. I just moved here a couple of years ago, whatever, and I've never been in this neighborhood, really. I just opened my shop maybe a few months before that. And she said, what are you doing here? And I was like, okay, this is the same thing this white man asked me, this police officer. What am I doing here? I was like, huh? And she saw that look in my eyes like, yeah, I'm still trying to figure that one out, like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, okay. I said, this is what I'm doing here. So I showed her my boutique, and she says, yeah, but what brought you here? Why did you come here? And I just looked at her, and she said, you don't know, do you? And I said, no, I know. It was just really weird, and I don't know if you understand. She said, no, I don't understand. So I shared just a couple of words, and she cut me off and said, listen, I don't know why you think you came here, but you've been here before, and you're here to finish the work that you started. And I said, oh, okay. And then she began to tell me the story of the princess. She said, many years ago when I was a little girl, she said there was an African princess that came from Ghana, and she came here to Jacksonville to help all of us black folks go back to Africa. She said, many people didn't believe her initially, but then she began to be very popular. She had a lot of followers, and people got mad, men, the church, different things started happening. They started threatening her life. She was murdered. I said, what? I said, what do you mean? What do you mean she was murdered? She was like, she was assassinated. She was killed. And she's buried here in Jacksonville. And I said, what? I said, I don't believe this is really far out. I was like, hold up. I grew up in California, very pro-black. I went to Huey P. Newton's funeral. I'm the third great-granddaughter of Nat Turner. I went to Wosay Community Church and lived off my aunt since I was in elementary school. On my own, not because my family did it, just because I was drawn to it. How could I not know this? I'm like, wait, a princess came from Africa? When was this? He was like, during the Marcus Garvey era. So she began to explain everything. And I was like, whoa, this is really far out. I said, so what does that have to do with me? And she said, well, prior to Mother's assassination, she always said that her old man God told her that if she lived in the spirit, that he will allow her to return to finish the works that she began. But if she went back to Africa, that she would die a mere mortal and would not be able to fulfill her dreams and the destiny of her vision. And I was like, so what was the vision? So she began to explain more to me, of course, about the fact that we here as Africans out of Africa, Africans born in another place, African by blood, American by birth, however you want to call yourself. We did not just fall out of the sky into a cotton field. Just like Italy has Italians, and Italians can go back to Italy, Africans can go back to Africa. Just like Chinese can go back to China. It's just that simple. Mexicans can go to Mexico. We have a royal heritage that we have yet to tap into. And she came in 1920s to give us this message. She left Ghana as an evangelist, and she came here with a message, a clear message. And I'll read briefly that message for you. Slavery was not an event experienced by just the Africans that was captured and then taken away. We were taught that this was an experience that every mother, father, sister, or brother of someone who had a loved one taken away into captivity. Moaning, tears, and prayers were offered not only by the slaves, but also by the many families and tribes in Africa that were affected. Their joint prayers were that one day they would be free and go home to resume their lifestyle in their homeland. When God answered their prayers and the slaves were free, Africa celebrated, believing that their people would soon come home, but few did. It seemed as if the prayers of the old slaves changed over the years. Blacks wanted to be free, but not to fellowship with Africa. They were some that had an interest in Africa, but they were soon told that there was nothing in Africa for them, that they had lost or left nothing there. God heard these rumblings and remembered the original prayers of the slaves and people in Africa. He then sent an African to America to tell the people they must remember their heritage, that Africa awaits a return of those that want to come home and a partnership of those that want to stay and pursue opportunities of trade. Princess Laura Adorkor Kofi, known by her followers as Mother Kofi, was from the Gold Coast, now known as Ghana, West Africa. God called her out of Africa to come to the United States to see about black people and tell them what he wanted them to know. Laura Adorkor did not come to America. She did not want to come to America, She was satisfied being a young housewife in Africa and a princess to boot. By being a woman, she could not see herself facing the public and leading congregations of people in a foreign country. She felt that God could pick any number of young men and women in Africa who were more qualified and could speak English better than she could. But God desired no one but her to come to America and tell black people about their culture and spiritual riches awaiting them in Africa. However, after visions and dreams, Mother Kofi accepted the call and finally came to America. She prepared for America, bringing the endorsements of chiefs, ministers, and leaders in Africa. They supplied her with documents, credentials, and power of attorney to represent them. She was also supplied with their products and raw materials like gold and diamonds, and above all, she was given a message by them to their people in America. It is a message she never failed to repeat in all her public appearances. And I quote, "Your kings and leaders of Africa, who are your fathers, and your native people, who are your brothers and sisters, have also given me a message to ask you. They say, you have been a long time away from home. Why have you not made preparations to come home? They say, if you want to come home, let us know. And if you don't want to come home, let us know. But in the Gold Coast, now Ghana, the part of West Africa, there is a door to all of Africa open to you and a hearty welcome waiting for you there." Ashe. Laura Adorkor arrived in the United States in the early 1920s. She first spoke in churches and then later linked with the then world-famous Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA. With them, she was known as Madam Kofi and soon became one of the foremost national speakers of that organization. Laura Adorkor taught that God was using her to tell us to learn about Africa as it is our motherland and to not be ashamed to be called Africans. She said we should partner with our brothers and sisters in Africa to trade machinery and tools for Africa's improvement. We should also send God-fearing, dedicated men and women who are skilled workers such as engineers, carpenters, bricklayers, machine workers, icemen, people who can build up Africa. She encouraged us to be independent and stop relying on others to do everything for us. We should create our own jobs, Mother said. Build Negro enterprises among yourselves, Mother would say. She went all around. Alabama, New Orleans, Florida were among the states that she crusaded. Thousands flocked to hear her speak, and people were enjoyed by greetings from Africa. They declared that this was the first time they had ever heard such good news and glad tidings from their people in Africa. However, many of the black missionaries, preachers, and leaders during this time, enjoying a financial gain by telling the people that Africans were ignorant, heathens, and that they needed civilizing, were against this. They did not really like her teachings. So against this background, she continued to enlighten her people who were misinformed, many audiences, about the success of Africa, leaders that were successful, how they controlled their own economy and controlled their own communities. And she began to teach this, where they had black mayors and city authorities, houses of legislation, and everything ruling. And she began to speak throughout the South. At one point, churches literally began to expel members from their congregation if they were mentioned joining that quote unquote lying woman. Mm-hmm. They even began to say she was not from Ghana, she was not from Africa. They began to slander her. I have since traveled there and have met her family and can document that she is real and was from Ghana, which is why I'm actually crowned in her name as Nana Afia Adorkor the first, because of the research that I've done on her life story. So she is real. They fought against her so much and threatened her life. Even her father came and spoke with, well, actually sent telegram, I should say, spoke with the president at the time, Calvin Coolidge, about her safety. And it was said, us white folks, we don't have no problem with the princess. It's her own people that don't want to hear the message or that's upset about what she's saying. It's not us. And this went on for a long time until finally there was a break between her and the UNIA. There was a break due to finances where she was not in agreement with a lot of the monies that were being spent for a lot of the parades and the different pompous things that were going on. She really wanted more savings to be done so that that money can be used for the infrastructure to build Africa. Her father, Kennesepi, did send the ships here to the St. John's River. Mm-hmm. There were hundreds of families in this community who sold everything they had and had bags of their belongings lined up at the water here at the St. John's River, and they would not allow that ship to dock. Mm-hmm. They, of course, were mocked and ridiculed and had to deal with being forced to stay here. There was a time when, black liberation, as far as going to Liberia, going to Sierra Leone, going back to Africa, was not such a spaced out thing like it is now. Literally, it's interesting that so many years ago, when we didn't have, the sophistication of all the jets and the planes and all that we have now, they were going. They were getting on boats and going. There's many of groups that have gone back from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and even before, via boat. But now, of course, we have a lot of laws against, maritime laws and, people getting in boats and being on the water, which it wouldn't be possible today. But it's just interesting that they were able, they saw Africa as so much more accessible than we do now in the age in which we live in. And that's kind of very interesting. So throughout her teachings, she taught that regardless of where you are in the world, you have that, if you have that African blood that goes through you, you should reconnect, because that's how you're going to reach your true greatness. That's how you're going to be the best that you can be, by reconnecting to that is within you, that is already there, that is great, that is royal, and it's there just waiting for you to tap in. And so, so this is the home that Mother Kofi lived in. Mm-hmm. And this is the home that she was arrested in and had to go downtown and show gold and diamonds and show that she was not a fraud and that she was really from Africa. This is the home that she fed people in on this block and cooked Friday dinners and then Sunday dinners and had her chicken coop in the back. This is the legacy. This is the home.
Who led you to this house?
So this home, I was in the neighborhood, and I was at the boutique because I had my boutique in this neighborhood not too far from here. And, my Famita came and told me about, the princess, and I began my research. And so one day, I met a lady by the name of Mama Stewart. And she had a thrift store on 8th Street. Rest in peace, Mother. And I love thrift stores. I got that from my grandmother, Marie Hightower. I love you, Grandma. And so I always stop and see what she had in there, and I would buy a few things. And one day I went in there, and I noticed that her toenails had just grown way over. I was like, Mama, what you gonna do with this? I gotta hook you up. She was like, no, I'm gonna go to the podiatrist. I said, I'm gonna be your podiatrist. I said, come by my shop anytime. So I gave her my address and then everything and told her to come by my boutique. I would give her a pedicure. And she took me up on it. One day I looked up and there's Mama Stewart, like 80 years old, walking in my shop like, you said you was gonna do my feet. I said, I sure did. I said, come on in here. And I hooked her feet up. No problem. I would visit, go by, pick up a few things periodically. And one day, as I was continuing my research, someone told me, they were like, you know that old lady over on A Street, Miss Stewart? And I said, yeah, I know Mama Stewart. They said, she's a coffeeite. She's one of the followers of that lady. She knows all of that stuff. I said, what? I said, you're kidding me. I said, I know her. So I got in my car, I locked up the shop, rolled around there, and I walked in there on Mama Stewart. I said, Mother Stewart. She was like, yes. Oh, hey, how are you? I said, how your toes holding up? Made a little small talk. And then I was like, are you a coffeeite? And she looked and she said, what do you know about that? And I said, I know enough. I said, we have to talk. So we sat down and we talked and talked and talked. And she came around and she showed me this house. Mm-hmm. She said, this is the house that Mother lived in. And at the time, it was like abandoned, boarded up, and overgrown, and it was owned by the Mosleys. Mr. Mosley, the Mosley family owned it, and they weren't doing anything with it at the time. And so I began to reach out, and then I put in some words, because this is a very tight-knit community. I put in some calls. I said, hey, who's up with this house on Florida Avenue? And then a friend girl of mine, her mother worked at the Housing Authority of Jacksonville and worked with the owner of this house. And so Shanita Hines, thank you Beverly Hines, got me in touch with Mr. Mosley. And Mr. Mosley, I didn't tell him at first why I wanted the home, because it was up for sale. And I thought maybe he doesn't know, I didn't know how far back he went with the history. So I just was like, I want to buy the house. And so he said, okay, well, my son is handling it and so forth. And so his son met me here, and he couldn't get in. He used every key on his keychain. He couldn't get in. And I said, well, let me try. Because he was just struggling. I said, go out the way, let me try. And as soon as I did that and I put my hand on that key, literally the door opened. Literally. And he jumped and he was like, that was spooky. What, you got some kind of magic touch? And I was like, I guess so. So we walk in here and I just feel the spirit all in this place. And literally I saw the image of Mother in that door. I had not even seen a picture of her at this time. Was still on the journey of information about the church and everything. I really hadn't seen a full picture of her whole body. So, but in the door was just like this gray hologram with this like plain white dress. It was really old fashioned, and it was like, wow. And we walked in, and the place was a total mess. And I was like, okay, I'll take it. How much you want? And I was trying to just hurry up and get out of here. And unfortunately, someone else stepped in, a white realtor company, and they stepped in, and then they started overbidding me, which I didn't know. And then next thing I know, I was riding by here, and people were fixing the place, and they were taking down some of the original things, which I didn't want to do, which is why the home is a little old. Like I don't want to do too much repairing, because I want to restore it to that age, that 1920s. Even the owner, me and him fought over changing the single pane windows to these double panes. I hated it. I wanted the old windows, even though my energy bill was high. I wanted to preserve as much as possible. And so I saw them fixing the place, and I was like, what's going on? So I had a heart attack. So I called Mr. Mosley, and I called him. I was like, what do you do that? Why did you let the people? I just went off on this phone. I was crying and screaming on the phone. And I was like, that's Mother's house. That's Mother Coffee's house. How could you sell it to those white people? I was just like, he was like, you know about Mother Coffee? What do you know about that? How do you know about that? No one said anything about that since I was a teenager. No one cares about that stuff anymore. How do you know about that? I said, I'm doing research on it. He said, well, why didn't you tell me? I would have gave you the house. I didn't want the house. My son didn't even want the house. I was like, well, why were you selling it? If you know the history of it, I didn't think that you would be selling it. So I didn't want to tell you the history of it so that you can hike the price up. Like, I mean, what do you mean you would have gave me the house? I'm on the phone crying. He's crying. I'm sorry. He said, I'll tell you anything you want to know. So he left his work and we went to lunch. And he began to tell me the story of him being a little boy and how he remembered mother holding him and nursing him. He was about 5 when she was assassinated. And he says he remembered her very vividly and how everybody would come around. And so this home was where they had their meetings. The president, they had the first phone in this hallway, and people from the block would come and use a phone. This first room here was the office. My bedroom was the family, was the husband and wife, their room. That was the Andrews, Emma Andrews, and her husband. And the kitchen was actually here, and it would go outside because they would cook outside because there's a back door outside, and this was a bedroom. So they switched that around. But this is the home. So he came for a few of our Juneteenth celebrations and a few of our events and told the story, and we got him on some tapes or some videos around here about, this was about 15 years ago. And so the story continues as he continued to share, and I continued to do my research and just find all kind of documents. And before I knew it, people were bringing things and leaving them on the front porch. I'd come home and there'd be stacks of books and paperwork on Mother Kofi because people in the neighborhood knew that I was doing research on her life. And they would have elders that would pass, or they would go looking through drawers or closets and find stuff, and they would bring it to me. And then I would see people and they would tell me stories of her life and her death. And so interestingly enough, when she was assassinated in Miami, speaking in the pulpit in March 8th, 1926, she was speaking, and there was a hole in the wall where they stuck a gun through that hole from outside, and they shot her. And the mob that was there beat to death one of the guys. One guy got away, one guy was arrested. Those that was arrested and the guy that got away, it said that he fled into the prominent white neighborhood of Miami. I have the names. I won't throw no last names out there. We don't want to hurt nobody, but there were names. I have documents upon documents of names of the people who were involved in her assassination, the trial. They got off for the murder. Marcus Garvey around the same time was being deported for mail fraud, and her life was being threatened by UNIA. The people who were arrested were UNIA. This is one of the first rifts in a black movement caused by either, at the time, the FBI. This was one of the first FBI projects that worked within the dynamics of creating division in the black community, is between Mother Kofi and Marcus Garvey and the Back to Africa movement. So she was being threatened by UNIA, and she went to Garvey in prison, talked to him, asked him to help her with what was going on. And at the time, he didn't have any power. They were just doing whatever they wanted to do at that point. He was locked up in Atlanta. And so she spoke. That was her last time she spoke for the UNIA. Gathered thousands. I think they said over 2,000 additional members at that meeting that she spoke at in Atlanta on behalf of the UNIA. Even though she was no longer a member and her and Garvey had their differences, she still supported this movement, which is repatriation. And so I'm honored to be here because it's a long time coming. When I first did this research, no one knew anything about Mother Kofi. Um, it wasn't on the internet. It wasn't on YouTube. You couldn't Google her. I reached out to the UNIA at UCLA, different places around the country. No one knew anything. I literally had to get in the plane and get in my car and go and talk to people in nursing homes and, get the story from people who lived during that time. And then from there, I got a lot of information from the black newspapers because during that time, the white newspapers did not cover stories that were happening in the black community. And this was a black community event, and so it was covered by us. Unfortunately, I kind of wish it was covered by them, because had it been covered by them, I would have been able to have much more information. But because it was covered by us only, um, our people have refused to give the information. There's several black newspapers that I contacted that had files 20 years ago that they refused to allow me to read, that they did not want to, because of legalities, they did not want to put the UNIA under the bus, they did not want to rehash old stuff, they felt like it should stay in the closet. They did not want this lady's story to be told because it sheds a really bad light on, certain weaknesses that we have in our community as a people. It deals with the male and female thing. There was an issue with the fact that she was a woman and she was used to speaking her mind. And here in the U.S. at that time, women were not even allowed to come forward and speak those type of things. That was one of the issues. And then, of course, the fact that, her father was the king and there was that sense of royalty. Here in the U.S., there's just like this thing. We don't really get royalty. It's like we don't really deal with titles and all of that. It's just everybody's equal type of thing. That was part of it. And then the fact that the money issue, spending all the money for an image is okay, because I honestly believe that we as a people needed a certain lifting, and I thank Baba Marcus Garvey for what he did in lifting our image and showing us that greatness, that grandeur that just is needed. But at what point, at what level? So there was a level where Mother felt like it was too much, like the monies being spent really should have been going to save, to go to develop where we were planning to go, or to build business and commerce. And the commerce she had set up, in regards to the ship coming here, in regards to the agriculture, in regards to diamonds, in regards to gold. She had a lot of commerce already set up and ready for us to be able to work and do that. Her father had the ships, but Garvey said no, he had someone that had the ships. He didn't want the king to bring the ships. He wanted to provide the ships. So he didn't allow but that first ship, and then it wasn't allowed to dock. So then the king didn't send any more, and then we all know what happened to the Black Star Line. I have some certificates, and I need to get them out, but they're certificates of the people who paid to register for a seat on the Black Star Line, where they were paying, $800 US in that time. It's a lot of money. That's like $100,000 right now. I mean, they were paying a lot of money for a seat, and that's per person, not per family. And so the $800 per person to be on this Starliner for that kind of money, this is what Mother was questioning, the books and the that type of thing. And Sister Tiffany can identify with that because, her family is into taxes and things like that. And sometimes as people, we don't want to deal with those papers. We don't want to deal with questions of how much money are we spending and why we're spending it on this and it should be spent on that. We don't want anyone questioning us about our money. But to be successful, you have to have someone that's doing the check and balancing when it comes to finance. Because if not, look what happened financially with the UNIA. So I began to work also with those in Dabula Drive here in Jacksonville. Big up to the family, Satatu and the Keys and the family of Nimbolo, who was the pastor that came from South Africa to take over the church once Mother was assassinated. So after her assassination, her children, her followers, they came together and they started this church and continued the church, I should say. And they have some land here in Jacksonville, Adorkorville, which at one point had over 50 homes and a thriving community, and taught Bantu, one of the African languages, taught Kiswahili, had a church, had their own economy, their own infrastructure, and also had built another community in Alabama as a sister community. And they grew up, families grew up together for generations like that. Until Nambolo passed, and he was buried in Alabama to connect the families. And the land is still here in Jacksonville. We did a tour there a couple of years ago, back in 2012, during the Bringing in the Spring community celebration that we had here in Jacksonville, and we did a nice tour on that land and talked about the story of Mother Kofi in Adorkorville. Thank you to the Nuwabians that came out from Atlanta. Thank you for all those that participated in the Bringing in the Spring event. We'll have to do it again. We got the Black Love Tours, where we've incorporated the trip out to Fernandina Beach, which is also connected to Mother Kofi. Everything begins with Mama, let me tell you. So, how does it begin with Mama? We all have heard, if you're in Florida, you know A.L. Lewis. You know Abraham Lincoln Lewis. He's the first black millionaire for the state of Florida. And he started the Afro Insurance Company here in Jacksonville, Florida. And he used like a 401k type of program from that company, the pension and things, to purchase American Beach, or Black American Beach, which was the first beach that blacks were allowed to swim on, and it is in Fernandina Beach. And to this day, there's still a strip of that land that's owned by blacks, right in the middle of all these big $1 million homes and sky rises on Amelia Island. So that was purchased. That's where Ella Fitzgerald and Fats Domino and Billie Holiday, they would all come and they would sing. And there's a nightclub there that's being renovated and being built into a museum right now, and that they're trying to renovate there at American Beach. And so we have our Black Love Tours where we go there and we enjoy Bernie Park. And that's one beach. It's a beautiful experience. We camp out there. I want to give respect to Mama Beach, Maving Beach, the beach lady. May you rest in peace, Mother, who championed that beach. She was the great-granddaughter of Abraham Lincoln Lewis, and her sister is the great Janetta Cole, who was the president of Spelman College. And so this story is really deep. It goes deep, where people don't know who's who. But your queen, I've done my research. So I sat at the foot of Mama Maveen Beach, and listen to the stories of her growing up as a kid, running around all of these great African entertainers and millionaires of their time, going to school in Europe and traveling the world, and being the granddaughter of a millionaire in the 20s and 30s, 40s. It's really, really something. So that is an interesting part of this story. So if we come out for the Black Love Tours, we'll show you the home here. We'll go to Abraham Lincoln Lewis's mausoleum. We'll go to Mother Kofi's mausoleum, and we'll go out to Black American Beach and show you the love out there. Maybe hit up a little bit of the Kingsley Plantation, which that isn't quite directly linked, but it's indirectly linked because, of course, Abraham Lincoln Lewis married one of the Kingsley daughters, and that connects the story even further into African American history here in the Northeast Florida area. So it's kind of like a synopsis of the. I know there's more questions, so I just wanted to give like an overview, because my guests here, if we would have just answered, if we would have did question answer, they would have been lost because they knew nothing about any of this, and so I had to bring them. So now that we've given an overview, it's all you. We can go to your questions, and then I can give you documents to back up anything that I've said, and we can go from there. Is that cool?
Yeah, most definitely.
But for now, I guess we can get some reactions from my guests.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, to kind of earlier, but I wanted to also know
do you feel like she is leading your path? Like, do you believe that there's some type of connection between the two of you?
I didn't at first, but over the years, I have come to the realization that I truly could be her reincarnation.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
Yeah, whether she was an ancestor or whether you were.
That's what came.
She's
her
not
spirit.
an ancestor,
Yeah.
but I'm the reincarnation, to the
Yeah.
point to where her family felt it so much that they gave me her name.
Right.
They crowned me with her name. Yeah.
And then next thing is, how did you meet her family? Like, how did all of that come about?
That's a good one. Okay. So, so doing my own history, as far as being the third great granddaughter of Nat Turner. Nat Turner's mother was a Ghanaian princess.
Mm-hmm.
And so his mother was a Ghanaian princess that was given to a European wealthy man that had came to Ghana. And she was given to him as a gift, as a bride, because he was a really nice man.
Mm-hmm.
And he done a lot of great things for that tribe. He built things for them, and blessed the people. And because he blessed them so well, the chief wanted him to have his daughter as a wife. So they married in Africa and everything, and they came here. So when Nat Turner was born, this is the whole story about him not really being made to be a slave and the special treatment and things like that. They never really get into why he had that special treatment, except for the fact that his mother was married to the white father, but they didn't really get deeper into it in the movie. But she was actually an African princess. And so being that my family history, I knew that I had some bloodline in Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that for my 40th birthday, or before I turned 40, I would go to Ghana and I would do this research. So I went to Ghana about 8 years ago, and I did some research. I started with the fact that all the documents say she was from Asofa. So I started there. So I started asking, where is this town, Asofa? No one knew where it was because it kind of doesn't exist. It does, but it doesn't. It's like, at one point it was its own town, but the city has grown.
Right.
So Accra has overtaken this Asofa. So I should have known, though, because the documents say Asofa, a small town outside of Accra. But now it's part of Accra. So if you go looking for Asofa, no one knows where you're talking about. You have to say Accra, and then you have to say, some other things. I say, oh, no, so it's like a small community now inside a big city. And if you don't know, if you're not from that area, you wouldn't know that small city, that little small town name, So I was in Kumasi doing some work, and this is a long story. I'm going to try to shorten it as much as I can. I was in Kumasi, and they were having was it the 15th year or the 20th year anniversary of Osei Tutu II Atumfo, the king. And I wanted to go badly. And they had the event at the stadium. And my friends were like, you can't go. It's, it's VIP only type thing and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you don't know, I'm VIP. You don't know who I am. Okay, we're going to show you this thing. So they thought I was crazy, but make a long story short, I get dressed. I go to the stadium, and all my friends are like, you're crazy. You're not going to get in. And they're standing like in the back, and all these soldiers, they walk up. It's like, oh, are you here? So yes, I'm here to, be a part of this event. Squad. I don't even remember what I said. And the man looked at me. He was like, where you from? I was like, I'm from the U.S. He was like, oh, okay. So he let me in. So I get in, and I'm inside the stadium, and my friends are looking like, what's up? I was like, oh, yeah, they with me. Can they get in too? And they was like, you can pick two. I was like, okay, dang, I got to pick two of y'all. I will do that. So I had to pick two, and then the other ones had to go up in the way in the nosebleed section type thing. So now we're down on the ground floor of the stadium, and this is the huge event, which I'll show you all pictures of the coronation of the Ashanti king. Beautiful. I have never seen anything like it in my life. Never seen anything like it in my life. The regalia, the clothes, the armor, and the guns, and and the dancers, and the medicine people. Everything. I mean, it was just, I had never seen anything like it. It was so amazing. So we're down on the ground floor, and I'm walking around, and I'm checking out everything. And interestingly enough, I had gone to the King's Palace for just to show some respects, to go and went to the museum, and they had some fabric that they were selling, and I was trying to pick out the fabric that I wanted to make my outfit for the event. And I was leaning toward this one piece of fabric, and the lady came and she walked by and she picked up a different piece of fabric, and she said, "Buy that one." And I said, "Okay, I'm buying what she said buy." So I made my dress in that cloth, and wouldn't you know, I get there, and all the women who are the helpers is wearing that fabric. So everyone thinks I'm with the people who put the whole thing on.
Yeah.
So they're coming up to me, asking me questions, and I'm like, I don't even speak Twi.
Yeah.
I'm like, OMG. So, but I was able to serve because I saw there were some kings that were hot, some chiefs. I shouldn't call them kings, excuse me, Jose. Some chiefs who were hot. So I was bringing water and running around, doing all this stuff. And I was taking pictures with all the kings and all the chiefs and all the queen mothers and just having a ball. And so my friends was like, they couldn't believe it. They was like, "This is amazing. We don't know how you did that." So I did it. And so, make a long story short, there was this one chief. He just was just black and beautiful. Nana Afia. I love you, brother. He was just so regal and just black and beautiful. I just had to have a picture with him. And I hadn't seen him previously. He was leaving out. So I was walking up. I was like, "Excuse me, can I have a picture with you?" And he said, "Why should I?" I said, "Because you don't know who I am." And he looked. I said, "If you don't give me the picture, you're going to regret it." And he laughed. He said, "Okay, I like your style." So he took a picture with me, and then some other people came and took a picture. And he felt there was something. So I looked at him. I was like, "So are you a chief here?" Or, we talked a little bit. And he was like, "No, I live in Accra, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Accra." I said, "I'm looking for a place called Asofa. It's supposed to be somewhere in Accra." He said, "I know where Asofa is." He said, "It's in Accra." He said, "But it's just like a small little area by Barrier." I said, "Finally, someone knows where Asofa. You know where Asofa is for real." He's like, "Yes." I said, "I need you to take me there." He said, "Well, when are you coming to Accra?" I said, "I don't know. I don't even know nothing about Accra." I said, "I've never been to Accra. I always come to Kumasi." Kumasi. My first trips to Ghana was all about K-Malls. I tell you, K-Town. Kumasi. Big up. So I was like, "I have not been to Accra. I just land there and then it's straight to Kumasi." He was like, "Well, you have to come to Accra. I'll take care of you." So make a long story short, Nana Afia. About a week later, I caught the VIP bus from Kumasi to Accra, an overnight trip, like from Atlanta to Jacksonville. And got to Accra. He picked me up, put me up in a hotel one of his godson owns, and took care of me for a few days there in Accra. And he took me in his Jeep, and he took me to the palace in Asofa. And when I got there, the chief was ill. The chief was ill, and I couldn't meet him. But we were talking about the information about who I was coming to see and what I was there about. And as soon as I said her name, Laura Adorkor, they knew who it was. So they went and got her family. And they came and they said, "I am Adokeli, I am Adokolo." It depends on the firstborn, secondborn. It's Adoko, Adakeli, Adokali. It's like a bloodline name ceremonial thing. So when you have that name, they know what family you're in. They know what tribe. They know even what generation you were born in based off that name. So they knew that this Adoko would have been like the first generation. So it would be their great auntie, or their, like that, their great grandmother's sister or brother. So they gave me the whole bloodline, from her brothers to everyone, to the stories of whites and other missionaries that came to Ghana and met with them previously and promised to come back, promised to bring her body back. We talked about bringing her body back, and I emphatically discouraged it, and for numerous reasons. And so they agreed. And so, but we are putting a statue and doing some things there in her honor in her community in Ghana, where she had her church and where she branched off from there. She started her church there, and then she left from that church and came here as an evangelist. And so, so that's how I found her. people.
Wow. Thank you.
If I had never stepped out on faith and
Faith.
said I was getting inside that stadium for that event at all costs, and then the Spirit led where I ended up with the right cloth and everything. I didn't know until I got in that all of the ladies that were the
Well, it seems
people
like Spirit has really kind of directed your, not kind of,
has
directed your path.
100%.
This whole
I've
entire
allowed
thing.
it, yeah.
So where do you see this going today? Like,
Well, it's Ma'ata.
Yeah.
Currently I've been crowned a double queen mother in Ghana twice. I'm crowned, and I've been blessed with over 1,000 acres of land in Ghana to build a repatriation community. So the mission is still the same for people of African heritage to reconnect, to have a second home, a vacation home, a retirement home, or just get the hell out of America when you want to home. Is that real? To tap in to our African royal roots and heritage, whether it be financially. Maybe you can't go to Africa, maybe because of felonies. I understand my brother's child support and this and that. You got hemmed up. You can't get a passport. I understand. But you can still invest in Africa and get something out of Africa. Hit me up about businesses that you can invest in that's been vetted. The Chinese and Russians is making all the money, and it's our inheritance, and it's just sitting there. That's what repatriation is about. So the word is R-E, repatriation, and that's to reconnect physically, individually, reconnect physically to the roots of your mother and father. But I cloned a word W-E, repatriation, which not only does it not mean individually, it means collectively, but it also does not only mean physically. It also means mentally, spiritually, financially, culturally. How can you reconnect? Learn an African language. Learn how to cook some African food. Take an African dance class. Travel the next time you go on vacation. Don't go to Europe or the Caribbean. Go to Africa. Reconnect. And you will find that it will be one of the best decisions that you have ever made in your life. So Ma'ata, we are building. We've been blessing people with land. Those that are ready to go back home and reconnect. Do link up the C.H.E.S.S Foundation at C.H.E.S.S Foundation at yahoo.com. That's chess like the game of life, because it truly is about proper positioning yourself for success. And that's what this is all about. When you point one finger at someone, you always have three fingers pointing back at yourself, and you have one finger pointing up at the Most High and the ancestors and the saints and sages. So I always try to teach my people, don't concentrate on this one finger. We can talk about the man and them and that all day long. It's true, and it exists, and it's relevant. But it's not very relevant when you have three fingers pointing at yourself and you have one pointing up. And you already know the Most High got you. You already know this finger, this right here, this is on you. This is your team. This your A team. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We join in with the one finger over here. If we stick over here and join with this, that's 4/5 of the problem solved. Which means this 1/5 is not very relevant. So that's why I teach my people, just learn to fly. Learn to fly, blood. First, love yourself, because black love plus black unity equals black power. It is an equation. We holler black power all day long, but we have no power because we have no unity. No unity. And we have no unity because we don't have love. Love is long-suffering. Love is meek. Love is kind. Love is charity. Mother laid down her life. Let me tell you, I have respect for all those here in America that have laid down their life, that have given and sacrificed to the last blood for the liberation of our people. But I had never heard of someone who left paradise to come and do it. I had heard about people who was already amongst it and in the muck that have done it. The Caribbean is still the muck. You can call it paradise all you want, but that's still part of the chattel slavery system. It's not Africa. This princess left her home being fanned by peacock feathers, chilling, sipping on coconut water, to come and instill some love of self in our people and was murdered because of it. Martyred. When she was assassinated in Miami, 10,000 blacks walked from Miami to Jacksonville. Can you imagine that today? They walked. It took 2 weeks. They walked from Miami to Jacksonville where she was laid to rest. And along this walk, they had 7 to 8 other funerals in different cities where they had to stop because so many people came to mourn over the casket that they couldn't even move. Until they finally reached Jacksonville. They laid her in a glass casket and displayed her downtown and charged people to come and see the princess in the glass casket. Follow me, family. They charged from 50 cents down to 25 cents to 10 cents down to a nickel to see the princess. She was shot in the head March 8th, and she lied there as a display until August 17th. 5 months. Interestingly enough, right around Marcus Garvey's birthday is when they finally took her off a display and rested her in the Old City Cemetery here in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. How does someone's body stay fresh for 5 months without decomposing in the 1920s? They did not have the level of embalming and all that stuff that we have today. Every day, her followers would question the curator about the froth that was over the glass over her face. Every day they would have to remove her and to remove the condensation that was forming over her face. Because mother was alive.
She was breathing.
She was brain dead. But because she was black, she did not get the medical treatment that she would have gotten otherwise. And finally, when she stopped breathing and began to decompose, 5 months later, they laid her to rest. And I have all the documents to prove every word that I am saying.
But the strength of her to be able to even endure for 5 months was nothing but God.
Yeah. So this is the legacy that I live. And I thank each and every one of you for being a part of it, for being here, for sharing space.
Last question.
Sure.
How do you feel about that mantle that you've been given? Do you feel a heavy weight? Do you feel honored? Do you feel... What do you feel about this mantle?
I feel good. Na, 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 na. I knew that I would now. I feel good. I knew that I would.
Yes.
So good. So good. I've got you. I feel good, you know. It's an amazing feeling to find your purpose. It's an amazing feeling to find your reincarnated life, to reconnect to your reincarnated life. It's amazing. I didn't say it. People were saying it. People, when I was doing this research, and I would go and be like, "Oh, you look like her." Like when I'm gonna pass some documents around, and you'll be like,
I'm looking at her now.
Yeah, you look like her. You look, you know, in just your mannerism." And then sometimes when I tell this story, there have been times when people told me they saw me morph. Like I tried to contain it today when I got a little emotional. Like people have told me they've seen my face morph. They've seen different, spiritual things that people can see with their eyes. Mm-hmm. And they asked me, "Did you feel that? Mm-hmm. Your face has changed. Mm-hmm. Princess, are you princess? Are you somebody else?" type of thing, So it's been told to me, and I've had to grow to accept it. It wasn't something like, that's my reincarnation. I was like, what? Reincarnation? Is this real?
Like the first time I met you, I remember seeing you. You were standing by the door in the hotel, and I was like, gosh, you look so regal. And I walked up to you and I said, you look so regal.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and you were just standing there, just in all your glory, not saying a word, but your presence was regal on its own. So,
Wow.
I had to walk up to you and say, I don't know who you are.
You did. You was like, I don't know who you are, sister, but you are regal. And it just, when you said it, it was just like, thank you. So thank you to our turn. Yes, yes. I'm your reflection. I'm your reflection. Like, I don't invite people into my home very often. King has been here since Monday. He hasn't been in my home because this is a sacred space. I have had people come in here. They didn't want to take off their shoes. They, and I don't want to feel like sometimes this ain't no church I'm walking into, but there's just reverence. And some people don't understand that level of reverence, and they think that it's like worshiping a person or worshiping something other than God. And a lot of people have a problem with that. But I worship everything. I love life. So, even when I'm eating my food, I'm worshiping every little bite. I'm worshiping the idea that I can eat food. I wake up in the morning like, I just worship that breath. Everything to me is an extension of the Most High. Everything is God. Everything is the Most High. And I reverence it all, including you, including you, including you. The brother was telling me, goodness, your hospitality, since I came from Atlanta, it's like, sis, okay, I'm good. You done, okay, you don't got to do nothing else, I'm good. I want to make sure that those that come into my space feel that love first, because that's what it's about. We have to remain to put love first beyond anything. Sure. And from there, the rest will find its way, And that's what this journey has taught me. Even with, working with Mr. Hodges, it's like, okay, but I just work with him in love and in light, knowing that he's from a different generation where a lot of those things were not frowned upon. Not necessarily they weren't accepted, but sometimes they were, but they weren't frowned upon. Mm-hmm. And then, being under the influence, sometimes. And then of course the age, you do sometimes get forgetful, being stuck in your ways, and all that. So I just be like, okay, and I just utilize for the goodness in each person. The same way how you mentioned the other day when you were like, some of the sisters, you were like, I try not to deal with them on that level because I know that's a weakness. So I just try to let them shine and appreciate them for their shine. And that's important, that we allow each one of us to be human. And that we're diamonds and we have facets and we have some areas that's not shining so well. We have some dull spots. And to allow ourselves to be that and allow those around us to be that and just appreciate for the good times, the part that is shining, nurture that and show the love to that, so that the other part you can say, what about this? Let's this. Once you done loved on and appreciated what you see and what's shining, they say, well, let me help you, shine this part over here, because we are all in this together. And again, love and unity is the source of all power. Sure. And we have to get back to loving ourselves and letting that overflow. The Bible says, love thy neighbor as thyself. That means you have to love yourself first, people. Love yourself. It's okay. It's not a crime. Black on black love is not a crime. It's not a crime. So that's what this story and that's what this mission is really about. And I'm honored. I'm all of the above, what you said. I'm honored. It feels heavy at times. I do, I'm an emotional creature. I'm an empath. I'm an Aries. I'm a fire sign. I can throw all these labels out there that will give you an inclination of how I'm handling things sometimes. But it's all part of the journey, and I'm enjoying every moment of it.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome.
All right, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to have this discussion with you. I really appreciate it. And similar to what she expressed, there's this regalness about you. Like, I remember when I first came to the business house, there was somebody outside and they said, are you here to see the princess? And that actually took me back, because I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what I signed up for. But, I think that you lived up to that title in this sense, And, just being in your presence is just such a rejuvenating experience. Considering the fact that I haven't been able to encounter many people who've been able to work with me through this project to learn more about this woman and the impact that she's had on not just the community of Jacksonville, but numerous communities throughout the American South. And I really appreciate the fact that you've given me the opportunity to be in your presence and learn from you.
Thank you, Ashe Aquaba. You're welcome. You are most welcome. Midase. Yeah, Mother's work went very far. And, this was before, Noble Drew Ali, before, Malcolm X, before them all, there was Mother. And even before, what's his name? The one who helped to write for the Nation of Islam. Farad Muhammad. Even before Farad Muhammad was Mother. Yeah. And her teachings were so deeply embedded. Why don't we go to some of Mother's teachings now? So I will pull out some of her original documents that she wrote in those days, a couple of her books, and I'll just show them to the camera one time so that you can see some of her books, but I'll read from the copies because they'll fall apart. So here's Mother's sayings. Here is Mother's closet prayer book. Here is the Adorkorville, her teachings and prophecies of a church community. Also, we will share some of the, now remember I told you I had the original of this, which I will share this copy because the original again is so falling apart, but I will share this copy. This was the original Mission Crusader when they used to put them on the large paper.
Was that posted like in a?
This is a newspaper
for people of color?
No, this was a newspaper that they used to distribute, like the Final Call. It was called the Mission Crusader, and it talks about Mother and who she was and what she did. Yes. So it says, back in 1926, 27, and 28, they said Negroes must think white, not black. We ain't lost nothing in Africa. But Mother came with a different story. Out of Africa, the public ministry and assassination of Mother Kofi, March 8th, 1928, Miami, Florida, USA. I said 1926. I knew my brain. Look, y'all, I just look like this. I'm 45. Okay, my memory ain't all that well. But it's been 20 years of this. And I actually I was telling the brother Bishop doing this report that I kind of put it down as far as the researching of what went on here, because I've connected with her family in Africa and working with the government in Africa to put up her statue and give reverence to their daughter, the daughter of Ghana. So I've been doing a lot more with that part of the mission. So some of the dates kind of missed me, but she was not, she was assassinated in 1928. And she started her ministry in 1924. So just only 4 years she was here. And she was assassinated at the age of 35. So I will read a little bit of her, just a couple of her her sayings that I have copied, so that I'm not reading them from those originals. Another one was the African Messenger. was one that they had. Church, let's see, where is this? Mother's Sayings. I always like to read from Mother's Sayings. Read from Mother's Sayings. There's some good stuff in Mother's Sayings. So the front of Mother's Sayings on the booklet here, we're reading from this booklet here. For this thing was not done in a corner. Mother said, all I've asked my old man God is to take me in the presence of my children, that they may be witness that I went down for them. Mother saying, from the book of her sacred teachings and public ministries, the words that became spirit by Mother Adorkor, our blessed memory, with a bullet hole in the head. Assassinated March 8th, 1928, Miami, Florida. Her mausoleum in Duval Cemetery, Jacksonville, Florida, built by her children, the soul of Africa. By precept, example, and martyrdom. Published by her children, for her children, within and without the fold, and whoever will, ever, where, evermore. Missionary African Universal Church, 7200 New Kings Road, Jacksonville, Florida. The donation at the time for this booklet was 50 cents. Mother Adorkor of blessed memory, a prison graduate. So this is the story when they came and arrested her at this house. Okay. The crime was committed by a Judas paid off with funds raised by enemy leaders who were violently opposed to her Bible teachings and even more jealous of her mass following. In the crowded, brief 18 months of her God-ordained ministry, she faced daily harassments, arrests often, and plots to have her deported. From state to state, their slogan was, "Stop that woman." And when the criminal court in Jacksonville found no fault in her, they resolved that that woman must go at all costs. She was stripped naked in jail. Preachers declared her power over the people did not come from God, but came from juju and roots on her body, which there was none to be found. All lights were shut out during one of her meetings, but she was not killed this time. Many times her life escaped assassination, and she knew that it was yet a matter of time. In the excitement of the night, the assassin shooting from outside through the crack through a side door near the rostrum escaped. His accomplice was discovered inside the building and beaten to death. His dead body thrown outside by the enraged people, who all hurried to their homes before police arrived from downtown. Children were seen throwing stones and spitting on the dead body until police arrived from downtown. That was in Overtown, Miami, Florida. Overtown. Mother said before all of this, my God called me out of Africa to come over here and tell you what he would have his people to do. Children, he called me and asked me if he could use me till he found a man. And until I will set up a shepherd over them that shall be freed for them, he would say. I travel from place to place in Africa trying to keep from answering this call. Children, my God prevailed wherever I went. I could not get away from that all-seeing eye, and he visited me with dreams and visions. He finally afflicted me with a fearful sickness until death 3 times. Nothing could cure me until I said, here I am, Lord, send me, I will come, or I will go. She would say come, and she would use him for her. And Africans still do that to this day. I have African friends that'll be talking about a man, and they'll say, well, she... Or they'll be talking about the gender thing. They'll throw it around sometimes. And you'd be like, I thought you was talking about homeboy. Yeah. Well, you said she or her. Oh. Mm-hmm. So those little adjectives, or prepositions, they don't get it too well. But this was her teachings. And when she was traveling in Africa, interestingly enough, she traveled and she met with His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie. And they talked about this liberation project because, as you know, during that time, Haile Selassie was visiting Jamaica, and there was talks around this time about Haile Selassie was not Haile Selassie at the time. Of course, he was a young boy at the time, Ross McConan. He wasn't who he became until later. So let me be clear. So when she was traveling, she met with a young Ross McConan. It's amazing that she was a lot older than him, of course, but there was, in my documents, it showed that when she went to Ethiopia, she met with certain regents, and he was one of them. And the talks were about us coming back and how they were going to set up the land grants in these different countries. Who would be taking certain skilled workers in certain countries that could work, because that country needs bricklayers, or this country needs more agriculture, or this country needs. So it was planned to be a strategic execution, so that when we went, certain people would go to Ethiopia, certain people would go to Liberia, certain people would go to Ghana, certain people would go to different countries based off of what was needed to develop that country and the amount of land that was available, as well as how hostile or inviting the different local tribes were. So all that being said, they were working all of that out. And then finally, she was sent after traveling and her trying to just work it out from over there. They were like, "Nah, you gotta come." So she came. There was one that I really loved to read about when she was at a meeting. And she was and there were so many meetings that and this is the love one another part. Mother said, "Children, settle your own affairs among yourself. Never dig a ditch for anybody. If you do, dig two, for you will fall in one first. Children, don't kill anybody. Give them a long rope and they will break their own necks. Children, owe nobody a thing. Pay your just and honest debts. And remember, there is no big I or little you in this program." Yes. And then there was an issue sometimes with the parents. They didn't want their children, if their children loved mother, they would come and they would want to go to her church and go to her meetings. And she would cry and she would say, "If the parents won't go, give me my Pekins. Teach these children about their race and their motherland, Africa. Start them in the Bible from Genesis to Revelations. And know that it is us that they speak of." Yeah, she was a very powerful spirit. Very powerful spirit. Then she talked about, she prophesied the Great Depression before it happened. In her teachings, this is in the 1920s. It shows here that it says, "Children, it will come a time when many of you won't have nowhere to stay. You may have to pile up in one house. The period of housing shortage did not come, and there were many cases where families of 8 and even 10 were piled up in one room." But that was, she had spoke it before. She said, my God promised me that if we do my program, that we'll always take care of our own. She said, "Children, my God showed me it come a time terrible things are going to happen. They're going to destroy cities at night, and they are not going to spare the babies in the cradle. When the time comes, it will be like a thief and a robber. You never know when the robber is going to break in your house. It will be a time you won't have chicken, you won't have food to eat. They'll be signing up of papers. Some kind of papers y'all going to have to sign. When the papers come, you're going to sign these papers, and that's how you're going to be able to eat. That's how you're going to be able to live. Before this, there was no welfare system." She prophesied the signing up of papers to be able to get monies and food to feed your children. She said, "One day it's going to be worse with you Negroes than it was in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah." This is in 1926 she's saying this.
It was bad then.
"My God told me that under protection of this program, my children, you won't have to experience any of this, because we'll take care of our own. It may be that one got the meal and the other got the meat. You put it all together and cook it, and let all my children sit down and eat together. My God showed me your mother's program is so high, the devil can't go over it. It's so deep, he can't go under it. So wide, he can't go around it. Because I'll take care of my own, she says. This is when they jailed her here. This is the one I was speaking of. So she was out of jail that Sunday morning, and mother spoke to her children that afternoon, crowded at Prince Hall on State Street downtown. So you have the information from Prince Hall, right? Have you gone to their library yet?
No, I haven't gone.
Okay, so we'll go to Prince Hall on State Street, State and Pearl. And mother stood on the rooftop of the Prince Hall. And if anyone knows about Prince Hall, that's dealing with black masonry. And she's on there, and she says, now your mother knows how St. Paul felt and how all the apostles felt when they were cast into prison for his name's sake. With God to help me, I will not surrender, neither compromise or take back a single word. Children, stand up. Stand on God's promise until you can't stand anymore. And when you can't stand anymore, stand one more time from your mother. I come here with a message from Africa that I will not deter from. Mother told her children that while in jail that Saturday night, one of the police officers came and said to her, Princess, we did not put you in here. Your own people got you in here. Close quote. Close quote. Okay, interesting. My phone is ringing, y'all, and it ain't even letting me hang it up. Okay, now I did. Okay, I can hang that up now. Okay, sorry for that interruption. And then she continues. My God told me that if I go back to Africa, it is death. And if I stay here in America, it is death. But if I stay here in America and I give up my life here and be in his spirit, then I can do more for you and for my African children everywhere, as I will return to finish what I have started.
Do you want me to text them?
For my children understand that they can kill the body, but they are not able to kill the soul. But whether fear him, which is able to destroy both soul and body. I go to be in his spirit. When he takes me, be aware. My hands is in Jesus' hands, and Jesus' hands is in my old man God hands. And the other hand is in my children's hand. So when things get too hard for you, don't worry. My old man God and your mother, we got you. I've asked my old man God is to take me in the presence of my children, that they may know my love and witness that I went down for them, because I will truly take care of mine. There are so many sayings. There's stories and stories. Like in one of these, I have it highlighted in my other copies, but one of these is when she came back from Atlanta from the trip with Marcus Garvey, and she talks about what happened with him and how, you know, she felt so bad that by that time he had no power. There was nothing that he could do to really help her. Yeah.